welcome to the People Are People podcast, life lessons learned in real time, where we touch on the crazy realities of dealing with human behavior in the workplace. I'm Lexi Mahari, and in 2022, I am presenting a series that I simply call the New Manager Series, where we will focus on a variety of topics every manager needs to know to be successful during and beyond their first year of management. Being a manager is not always a pretty job. It comes with highs and lows that you must prepare yourself to navigate. This week, we are discussing the power of delegation. So let's talk about the term delegation, and particularly delegation in the workplace. What does delegation really mean? Well, in simple terms, it means that you are bestowing authority upon someone else to act on your behalf. And they can be doing a variety of things, as it relates to acting on your behalf. It could take on the shape of working on a specific project, that you don't have the time to support yourself. They could be attending a meeting on your behalf and acting as your voice during that particular period. Or they could be coaching another associate on the team or another employee on the team on your behalf. But that is typically, what the term delegation represents. It is you giving the authority to someone else to, complete something on your behalf. Now, before we get into the weeds of delegation, I have a confession to make. I have to tell you that in the first few years that I was a manager, I was always very hesitant to delegate tasks. But as time went on and I had to endure, limited staffing, budget cuts, I had to make some hard decisions about identifying the fact that, there were just going to be certain things that I could not pull off by myself. And so as a result, I was able to identify some really talented high performers on my team and delegate tasks to them. And once I did that, it really, opened up my ability to focus on other things while simultaneously, allowing associates or employees on my team to flourish, to grow. And, even eventually, I would say it helped them to move out of my team and into higher positions. Many of them even eventually became managers. So I think that delegation can be a very positive thing. But let's get into it. So delegation can feel a little bit overwhelming, particularly for those of us who are control freaks, right? There are a few of us who want to control every piece of the puzzle every minute of the day, and we just don't trust others to do it as well as we do, right? We've got our ego to worry about sometimes. It does hinder us, and it's understandable. Some of us have our own, I refer to it as PTSD, right? Where we have trusted someone to carry something out for us in the past, and it didn't end well. And we were kind of left holding the bag or, having to accept the blame for it not, transpiring in the way that it should have. So it's understandable that as a manager, you may be a little hesitant to delegate anything to an employee on your team. But there are some advantages to doing so. First of all, it can give you time back in your day to focus on other things that may have a higher priority on the list. It's a great way to build trust with your team. It shows them that you're trusting them to execute something of importance to you. And it helps them to maybe slowly begin to trust you because you're trusting them with a task. Additionally, it gives you some insight into, who your worker bees are on the team, meaning who are the people who only want to show up and do their day job versus who are the people who are really looking to, flourish in their position and potentially move beyond that position. Because there are definitely there will be people on your team who are very interested in growing beyond what they do in the day job. And it's a great way to mix things up for them, right? It takes them out of the monotony of their day-to-day work. Some disadvantages are it does require some work on your part. Now, the decision to delegate a task or an activity to someone does not completely take you out of the loop of ensuring it goes off without a hitch. It will require you to leverage some of your best communication skills because you have to be very clear with the person you're delegating the work to about what it is they need to do to complete the task. It may even require you showing them how to complete certain aspects of an activity to get you the results that you need. And a lot of times, it is that piece that will cause managers and just, I would say everyday frontline employees not to delegate something or ask someone to do something for them. Because often we get caught up in the thought process of, well, if I have to show them how to do it, I might as well do it myself. And that's, while that may feel like the right answer, it's just not always the best answer. And particularly for managers who are wearing multiple hats and, only have so many hours a day in, to do what they have to do. So you want to make sure that your communication is very clear. If you're sending an email, you're going to want to bullet point it out, take them through a workflow from start to finish of what it is you need from them. You have to keep in mind that some people are visual, so you writing a step-by-step of what they have to do may not be sufficient. You may even have to incorporate some screenshots into it. Something that I also used to do is I would meet with people virtually because I managed virtual teams in the past. So you may find yourself having to meet with them virtually and record that session if you're going to show them a step-by-step process so that they can go back to that after they're finished speaking with you. And you're going to have to make them feel comfortable with coming back to you if they have questions, right? You don't want them to feel like they can't come back to you and ask questions if they get stuck, trying to execute some process. Because the worst thing that could happen is, again, if they're completing something that's a step-by-step to give you information, it's just horrible if they do it all wrong, right? And so now they've wasted their time. And your time is wasted and you're back at square one with delivering a task. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance of communication if you're delegating a task, making sure they're very clear in what it is you're asking them to do, making sure that you allot time for Q&A. If it's, very detailed, make sure they have time to ask you questions before they start, and then all comfortable with coming back to you if they have any questions. Okay. The other thing is you want to aim for low-hanging fruit. So whatever you're delegating, whenever possible, particularly in your first year of management and you're brand new to the team, try to keep the tasks as simple as possible. It should be something that they are allowed to do. We don't want to give them access to any type of information that they should not have at their level. So you want to make sure that you're not breaking any types of company policies by asking them to complete a particular task for you. But you want to, like I said, keep it simple. It can be a component of a project that you're working on. They can also sometimes help start projects for you, right? So you want to make sure that they're clear about what they're doing, why they're doing it, how you're going to use the information, and even, is there any likelihood that you would have to share that they helped? Some people, interestingly enough, don't want the recognition of helping, and others, they want to bask in the spotlight. They want you to say that, Sally Joe helped me complete this component of this project, or maybe they helped to start a policy or drafted a policy, but they want to also get that recognition. It's a sign of appreciation for some people. So you want to make sure you're very clear if, it's going to be something where recognition is warranted, or if it's just a simple administrative task that you need help with. Okay. Now, choosing the people, choosing the who is going to help you with this. So you definitely want to be clear that you are selecting someone who wants to help you. There will likely be people on your team who would prefer to be worker bees and not have to deviate from what it is they were hired to do, right? Technically, they were not hired to do your job. And even if every job description out there has other duties as assigned, in their mind, they were hired to do one job. And so they just want to show up, do their job from 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, and then log off or go home at the end of the day. So you want to make sure that you're choosing people who are willing to help you with your task, because that also translates to, oftentimes will translate to accuracy, um, critical thinking. Maybe they'll look for an easier way to get it done and share that with you. So there's a lot of advantages to choosing someone who wants to do it. So obviously you want to choose someone who is invested in the company. They may have some investment in you. They may be interested in, as I've mentioned, growing in their role. So you want to choose that individual. Additionally, you want to be purposeful about what you're assigning to these individuals. So you'll want to keep all those conversations that you had in mind with people. If you've got someone on the team and I'm using this as an example, who is a pro at Excel, and they've been dying to get back in there and create pivot tables for the type of work that you do, and now you find yourself maybe needing an adjustment to a pivot table or information extracted from a pivot table or developed, then you go to that person and ask them to work on this particular thing for you. You want to provide a timeline for the tasks that you are delegating. If you need it by the end of the day, you need to be upfront with that person and tell them you need it by the end of the day. If the end of the day is when you're supposed to be submitting information elsewhere based on the work they're doing, then you need to give them a timeline or a cutoff for earlier in the day that allows you the necessary time or adequate time to get it done. Because they won't know, they're going to be thinking that they have until 5 o'clock to get it done, unless you are very clear with them that you need it in an hour or you need it by 2, in the afternoon. Additionally, I would recommend that you check in with these folks as they're working on the task. Just periodically make sure they're okay. You don't want to come across, obviously, as harassing them after you've asked them to do something, because that can also read as if you don't trust. But you want to, reach out to them just to make sure they're okay, see if they have any questions about, the work that you've asked them to do. Delegation, does have some downfalls. Unfortunately, there are some people who are not always going to be upfront about what they can or can't do for you. Whether it's due to their own workload or their skill set. And so once you've asked someone to do something for you, you're going to want to get a sense of, can they really pull this off? So first of all, before you reach out to someone, get a sense of what their workload is for the day and if they are bumping up against their own timelines. Sometimes we have employees who have a little downtime. It doesn't mean they're not busy. It's just they're not in a crunch and they're nowhere near as busy as you are. So you may be able to, leverage their talents for the day without it disrupting their workflow. But if you have someone who is easily stressed or can easily become overwhelmed, you may want to kind of steer clear of them and maybe look at asking someone else for help. Skill set can be a little challenging at times. Unfortunately, we do have people who are not always forthcoming about their skill set, meaning they may not always tell you that they don't have the skill set required to complete the task. So you'll definitely want to work in assessing where their skill set is with completing the task that you're asking them to do. If you're doing a virtual call, you can always have them demonstrate the task back to you that you're asking them to do. If you're face to face, same thing. You can always have them, take a seat at your computer, or you can go stand behind them and say, hey, I just want to make sure you've got this, or have them send you something as they're doing it. But I have found, unfortunately, that sometimes people will hide the fact that they don't have the skill set to do what you're asking them to do, and you lose time. And unfortunately, they don't always understand that, but it's just fact, right? You're losing time as a result of someone who's trying to please their boss, unfortunately, but they're not thinking of the bigger picture that there's a bigger impact further downstream of what you're asking them to do. Finally, I am going to challenge you to spread the delegation out amongst different employees on your team. Now, yes, we've talked about the fact that it is likely that you're going to have a few individuals who are not, anxious to participate in helping you get anything done, that they just want to focus on what it is they do each day, and that's fine. But again, if you have more than one person who is eager and ready and willing to support you, particularly in your first year of managing the team, I would encourage you to spread out your delegation tasks. It will help to remove any misconception that you are favoring anyone. It will help to create transparency in what it is, the kinds of things that you ask people to do to support you or to support the team itself or the department. And it'll be a great way for you to also enhance your bench strength. So you won't always find yourself going to the same person. You will know that, there's 3, 4, 5 other people that you could go to get the work done. Now, I totally get it. Sometimes when we know that there is one person on our team that is really good at what they do, they always deliver on time and they deliver quality work. The easy answer will likely be to just go to that one person. But for your own sanity and the morale of your team, I am going to encourage you to look at spreading out the delegation of your tasks as much as possible. And with that concludes this episode of the People Are People podcast, Life Lessons Learned in Real Time. Thank you for listening today. Please remember to stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next podcast.